Hello, I'm Pablo Roll and welcome to the Global SKIMO YouTube channel. Today I bring you another video of SKIMO competition, but as you know, I don't just like putting GoPro footage with music and that's it. But I like to be able to give you more value, so we talk a little about strategy topics and techniques that will be useful to you, even for things like if you are gaining experience in races. I think it's a cool format. So we're here to talk about a race I did in Germany, right by the border. At 10 kilometers from here, where I live, the German border makes an inlet into Austria, and there's a national park in Berchtesgaden. We did a ski mountaineering race there. It was really awesome. 100% off-piste, with technical descents, with tracks, with switchbacks. Races that I really like, 5 climbs. A very cool race. We could scout this race the day before, and honestly, it's the first time I've been able to preview a course and then actually run it as planned. In the Pyrenees in Spain, sometimes we've scouted the race, but because of bad weather, the routes were changed. So this was the first race where I had a real advantage by knowing the course, knowing the descents, how the snow was, where the best track was, how the transitions were. In short, we were able to see the entire race, and honestly, it was something that you have a bit of an advantage when planning your strategy and making certain decisions during the race, which is actually pretty good. It was an incredibly perfect sunny day. Honestly, the day couldn't have been better. No wind, perfect weather. The race started, and well, as always, the Austrians jumped the gun, and as I said, the whole race was off piste so well, the first 2 minutes. It was on a track because I was trying to stretch the group, but obviously that wasn't enough. You had to start strong to be well positioned for the final on the line. So this was my strategy: start strong. People kind of started strong but then settled into their positions, and I kept moving forward. Actually, I was in the top 10 right after starting, which gave me a good position on the first ascent. I'm always moving up places during the race with the descents, with the changes and all that, but in the first climb, that was clearly not my position. We got into the track and I was already well positioned. I didn't have anyone clumsy in front of me who would mess up the switchbacks and make me lose time. I wasn't going to get stuck, so I just had to slow down a bit, find my pace, and take it easy. And truth is, while we were climbing up, I kept looking back and saw a line of people. It confirmed that I had made the right choice to start strong because the climb was technical, there were some icy turns, and people sometimes got stuck, some even fell. And if you're ahead of people who are stumbling, you end up having to go in bursts, stop, try, or try to overtake, and you waste more energy. That's why the initial push was worth it to get a good position. That first climb was the longest. The last stretch had a very steep hike. During the transition, as I always tell you, I went all the way to the end, positioned myself right where the hike started, quickly changed and began the hike. The hike helped me a bit to recover too. Since it's a different muscle group than skiing, it really helped. And upon reaching the top, it was the same. We got to the transition and there was just a diagonal left, then climbing up and out onto the ridge from where we could see the next two ascent, which we were going to do twice to form the 5. So I took off the skins and started the first descent, which was very short, and we were several at the same time. So I just had to follow those in front of me. Getting to the transition of putting skins on, this transition had a very ugly entrance. It was like on a very tight but very steep curve. And because there were also quite a few people, well, it couldn't be done. And the thing is, I ended up in a really bad position because I was at the foot of the transition. And then there was a very steep slope that went on. Then something curious came to my mind, and that's what I eventually did. I was making the change as I went. Moving through the transition, then I adjusted my skin and ski a bit forward, and then I walked a bit with the ski in one hand while adjusting the skin. So when I finished, I was in my preferred spot ahead of the transition, and I was able to move forward without the hassle of ending up at the back. I don't know how I would have handled the transitions uphill part, since there was like a step and then having people in front that you can't pass. So this is a trick that might come in handy during a transition like that. You know, it can be an option. And now, like I said, there were 4 climbs left, but they were short, all under 300 meters in elevation. So it was simply about setting a pace. My rivals couldn't gain too much on the climb, and if I was sharp on the downhill changes, I could gain positions without any problem. You pass the pass with people cheering, giving you some encouragement. Then you reach the high part, and after a turn, there was a descent that the day before, when we checked it out, had been transformed and was smooth. Quite good. And I was expecting it to be the same, but when I saw that the first 2 turns were a bit sticky, instead of getting frustrated, instead of attacking the downhill like I usually do, I got a bit defensive, protecting myself on the descent. Honestly, I didn't go down very well. I think I didn't pass anyone or almost anyone, and I wasn't very happy with how I did on that descent. Then, getting to the transition, it was another ramp-like transition. Honestly, the organization did a great job with these 2 transitions. Since it was like this, it wasn't worth going all the way to the end, as I always tell you, because it would mean a lot more rowing
when it would be much easier just with the skins already on.
So I positioned myself in the middle of the transition, did my change. I started the third climb, which was a zigzag shape on a steep slope, a very technical zigzag, a cool climb, very short. And after these zigzags, you were back on the ridge where there were a lot of people cheering. And right there, during the skin swap, I ran into a Spanish friend who also lives around here. I was surprised that he hadn't caught up with me earlier, since he has always helped me a lot. He climbs quite hard, and the first climb usually gets me, but this time it took longer to catch me. And we started going down at the same time. I went straight down to see if I could get loose, but he got right behind me. What we did really well during this descent was entering the transition. I came in with more speed, took the curve well, managed to climb the step, and got ahead of everyone. This way, we didn't have to make the entire shift on foot like before. Well, I was confident that during the shift, even if they gained a little advantage, as in other races, Jaime always lost time during transition, but he had buckled down, trained for them, and we left the transition area at the same time. Right at the beginning of the fourth ascent, I saw that his pace wasn't mine, and he started to pull away. In fact, he overtook several people. I was watching him catch up to others, and I knew that if I shifted and descended well, I could keep up. I was kind of keeping up all the time, but on the climb, I knew I was losing ground, because he came in really strong, and I was already feeling the effort of the beginning, so I started paying for it. I reached the top to change and remove skins. Now, this descent, which I did defensively on the previous lap, I attacked aggressively this time because of my motivation from having Jaime ahead and already knowing the snow conditions. My attitude was completely different. I went for it. You can see how well I went downhill later on Strava. From those who sync their activity, I got the calm for the whole descent. Honestly, I went down very, very well, very confidently. And in fact, I reached the transition just as Jaime was leaving, so we made eye contact, and I realized that the lead he had was as long as it took me to make the change. So I focused on making the change as quickly as possible. And I faced the last climb, which again were these steep switchbacks, knowing that in the last descent I was probably going to be able to catch up with him, because I had checked it out before. I knew it was technical, it was long, and I knew that if in this last climb he didn't get too far ahead of me, I was gonna be able to attack in the descent. And that's why I gave it all I had in this climb. I reached the ridge, made a perfect transition like a sprint.
And I started the descent, a very technical descent, very steep. At the beginning, it was a super steep slope, like a couloir. The day before, when we checked it out, we saw that what the couloir required was to cross from one side to the other with wide turns to control the speed. It was the most efficient way without using much energy.
Since I needed to gain position, my strategy was to make slightly shorter turns inside the track without crossing too much and without losing too much time. The advantage of having skied that track the day before was that I managed it quickly. In a few seconds, I had caught up with Jaime's group and a couple of Austrians who were following him, and they were zigzagging back and forth. I positioned myself right behind them and recovered a bit, because the short turns I had made had taken a lot out of me after more than an hour of racing. I knew that the overtaking had to be quick, so none of them would think of getting behind me, so I regained my strength. And when I saw a clear path, I went straight down very fast and managed to gain some more positions. And there was still half of the descent ahead, so I knew I had to keep going down quickly so they wouldn't catch me. But logically I couldn't fall. I mean, the only thing that could make me lose my position was a fall. So you descend safely, quickly, with confidence. I reached the last stretch, which was flatter, and I could look up and see that I had a sufficient lead. And to be able to enjoy the finish line of this race, well, it's so fun with people overtaking you, and then you overtaking them, meeting at transitions with many. There were quite a lot of people cheering. The landscape was spectacular. Honestly, a great, super cool race.
And that's the video for today. Subscribe, give me a like if you enjoyed this video reviewing the race, and see you soon with another video. Goodbye.